Welcome to XM.com for the weekly outlook. I'm Christina Marujos, and joining me today is investment analyst Mario Sechikiriakos. We'll be having a look at the coming week. It's a very intriguing time for markets, though, because you have these two conflicting narratives going on. First of all, we have all the optimistic news on the virus vaccines, and on the other hand, Marios, with Europe in a lockdown and infections rising in the U.S., fears for new lockdowns are growing by the day. How are markets responding to these contradictory narratives, and who might gain in this current situation?
Hello, Christina. You are absolutely correct. We are seeing a divide in the markets right now between brightening prospects for next year versus the current reality on the ground right now, with most of Europe in partial lockdowns and America very quickly moving in that direction. California yesterday announced a curfew for most of the state. Now, what's striking for me is that while we saw the stock markets and the commodity markets responding to the vaccine news and so on, the FX market didn't really react. Euro-dollar, in fact, moved lower after the vaccine news, which is the opposite of what you would expect, considering that the dollar has been acting like a safe haven this year. This, for me, suggests that the markets saw the vaccine news as decreasing the chances that the Fed will add more stimulus in the near term, whereas the ECB has already pre-committed to another round of liquidity next month, and therefore it's locked in already in a sense. Now, having said that, I think that the Fed will have no choice but to add more stimulus in December. You have tightening restrictions across the US on businesses, social life that will inevitably hit growth, even if without a national shutdown. At the same time, Congress is unlikely to deliver any substantial fiscal relief anytime soon, and the Treasury is now trying to withdraw some of the emergency loan programs that were available for small businesses. So the bottom line is, if the market starts sensing that the Fed is going to ease again, that would argue for some upside in euro-dollar. And arguing the same point would be a potential Brexit deal. We'll discuss this later on, but basically it seems very likely that we'll get a Brexit breakthrough very soon, and if so, that could boost both the pound and the euro at the dollar's expense. Bearing all of this in mind, I think that the near-term risks surrounding the dollar are tilted to the downside, but I also think that that downside is limited, because if you look at the euro-dollar, for example, it's around 1.19 right now, and the closer we get to 1.20, the more I would expect the ECB to step in and talk the currency lower. That level has been a real line in the sand for the ECB lately. Every time we approach it, the central bank starts talking about the exchange rate. So even though I would expect to see some upside in euro-dollar, I also would not expect to see a break above 120 anytime soon.
Now, turning to data, we're expecting preliminary PMIs for November out of the Eurozone on Monday. Markets are bracing themselves for very weak numbers. How do you think the euro will move?
Well, to be very frank, Europe has been in a lockdown for several weeks now, right? So most of this bad news should be priced in by now. The numbers are expected to be horrible, but that's very natural considering that most of Europe is in a lockdown. And the question is really whether we will see a real downside surprise, whether the numbers will be even worse than expected or not. Considering that the forecasts are already very ugly, I would not expect to see a major downside surprise. Now, having said that, for me, these numbers are the real joker for euro-dollar right now. So I believe that the pair could head a little higher in the near term, but if we were to see a major disappointment in the PMIs, that could be the saving grace, let's say, for the dollar.
And last but not least, let's have a look at the latest Brexit developments. Is a deal imminent this coming week?
Well, it certainly appears so. It seems that the negotiators have gotten as far as they can by themselves, in a sense, and right now both sides are waiting for the politicians to step in and make concessions. So specifically, it looks like the EU is waiting for the UK to make some concessions on the level playing field and the competition rules, and after that happens, the EU will make some concessions on fisheries, which are the most contested topics right now. Now, overall, we've been doing this dance for a very long time. The deadline for finding an agreement and ratifying it is really approaching. So it might not be next week, it might be the week after that, but I would expect to see a Brexit deal appear soon. And if that's the case, even though we've seen the pound move higher lately on anticipation for a deal, I would still expect to see the currency moving even higher once the headlines of the deal is done hit the markets.
Marius, thank you for joining me today. This was the Weekly Outlook. Thanks for watching at xm.com.